And we can start there, right? We could just have a quick conversation on that. So it's to the point now where, even on our team conversation this morning, everybody knows somebody who's got it, right? It's just been, circling and circling strong. So we have to, we have Frances putting her mask on for this.
Because Xavier's in here with me as your friend.
So I thought we scared you with the topic. You're like, all right, I'm buckling up.
He's sitting next to me. He's got a baby at home.
But yeah, I mean, we really have to, guys, take that turn of, toward being extra cautious with our open houses, right? Making sure that we have adequate space, making sure that all of our disclosures are signed, making sure that we're talking things through with our sellers before we do an open, and begin to prepare your business if we can't do opens before long, right? Because at a certain point, if these numbers continue to stay in 2,000, 3,000 reported, we have to ask ourselves if we're really helping our clients, right? By especially the delayed showings to an open house, you're almost forcing the consumer into an open house situation, which can be perceived, really poorly with this going on. So, we said a couple of weeks ago on the Mastermind, we have to stay nimble as this evolves, but it's definitely, I think the next couple of weeks here are going to be pretty profound as far as, counts going up and additional restrictions in place. So just be cautious, be prepared. If you don't feel good, do not come near the market center. And if you don't feel good after you're in the market center, please let us know. So that's a segue to a much more exciting topic.
Yes.
Actually a terrible segue. Which is branding, right? And I mean, I guess I'll start with a mini intro as to just what branding is, right? And branding is basically some sort of depiction that's an extension of yourself that will create a tie back to you, so that if a member of the community, if a consumer, if a past client is exposed to your branding, it will create that neuro connection back to you and what it is that you stand for. So we take a couple of things into consideration when creating a brand. And I think the most important thing is, who do you want to connect your brand to? So there's actually a couple of people on this call that do quite a bit in the branding arena. So I'm going to be leaning on you guys too for some input. But I first want to say, a member of my team and I sat down earlier this year and we talked about rebranding her business because she felt like she was connecting with the wrong people. And what does that mean in a business where we want to connect with everybody? The image that we put out will return a reflection of that image. We are going to connect with people in anything we do, from a marketing perspective, sometimes even down to the colors we choose, the way that we present, the slogan that we pick, our body posture and what we put out there. It's going to connect with someone. If our marketing is bold and brazen and brash, we're going to get bold, brazen and brash people to respond to those items. So one of the things that a member of my team and I really talked through is, let's first think about who we want to connect with. Like what would be a reflection of you that would connect with people that are going to share likes, interests, and basically a casual social exchange that you would want to be a part of. And we really drilled it down to who is it that we want to attract, and then what would that person want to see. Now, most of the time, you can have a little check and balance in here by saying, if you came on it like that, who do we want to attract and what would that person want to see? That should be the same thing as if you created a brand that was an extension of yourself, right? Because we really should want to attract people that are like us in business. If you don't do that, you're going to set yourself up for a more challenging time managing relationships. I'll end it with this one example, and then we'll take it from there. When I was new to the business in my early 20s, I think I've told you guys this story before. I would go and try to be like super smart numbers guy. There were no young people in our business back then. So I'd be competing, against, 50, 60, 70-year-old realtor who automatically, just because of their age, walked in with a ton more credibility. So I felt for a while that it was really my duty to just sound like I knew everything, right, about the market and all those things. And I would go in there knowing all the number, and I'm not a numbers person, but I would go there. Sometimes I'd wear glasses, no joke. If I felt like they were really numbers people over the phone, I'd like wear a costume, right? So I'd go in with my glasses, and most of the time, those entire transactions were really challenging to me. And not challenging because the transaction was any harder, challenging because I then had to be someone else for that entire transaction. Because if I then showed up as myself and really focused on the things that I'm good and natural at focusing on, I was going to be disappointing them because I was delivering out of the gate an expectation that was not me. And I think that's where a lot of people go wrong with branding in both directions, is that the brand that goes out there is not really a reflection of them. So it'll either attract the wrong people. So then the people that show up will turn them into those, folks who say, hey, everyone, I know there's no loyalty out there, right? You hear all these kind of things. But a lot of times it's just because it's attracting the wrong person, or the person that we're not meant to connect with, when someone else's branding should be connecting with that person because they are much more in alignment in a natural sense. So when I decided that I was just going to be myself on appointments and casually have conversations, and if they didn't like that I wasn't a numbers person, if they started talking numbers, I'd tell them, listen, there's only a few numbers that matter, and I'm going to explain to you those, right? My job got 50 times easier because I wasn't acting. I wasn't playing a role. I wasn't playing realtor. I was just being myself and explaining the real estate process. So I figured we'd open up with that and just kind of talk through what some of you guys on this call have done. Xavier's got some pretty cool branding stuff that's gone out there, very edgy look, just to see what kind of experience you've had in maybe putting that branding together. Have people notice the branding, right, and come back to you. Frances has spent a ton of time branding herself in the Clifton community in different ways. So I'd like to hear what some of you guys have to say about the brand that you created, and has it always attracted the right person? Do you feel that the branding was important, your colors, all that stuff?
Bill, the other thing I was just going to jump in, while people are digesting your question. I was talking to my MAPS coach a couple weeks ago, and one of the reasons why I thought this would be a good topic today was because there's also a different way to look at brand. And he used the term unique value proposition. And I thought that was a very interesting way of framing branding, that, everything that you just said, the style, the polished nature, how you presented yourself and what you're attracting. I think a big part of it is understanding what your unique value proposition is to your clients. Because if you understand what your personal unique value is, that separates you, and you taught me this better than anyone, is what's your elevator speech? Like, if someone's like, who are you as a realtor? Who are you as a team leader? For me, my unique value proposition is, in my opinion, a lot of people know or know where they want to get to, but they don't know how to take the yellow brick road to get to Emerald City. And so for me, that's my 15-second, 30-second pitch that I can throw out there to say, okay, that's who I am. But then digging deeper, like, okay, what does that actually mean? And I think it's important that for everyone on this call, if you've never thought of it in this way, what is your unique value proposition? Because that's going to very much tie then into branding, not just the imagery of what your brand looks like, but it's who you are as a person. And at its core, that ultimately is going to, I think, I had this conversation with Sean Annan the other week, and I asked him this question. He's like, wow, it's actually a really powerful question, because when you think of branding, you're thinking of, like, Sean, for him, everything is very consistent. If you're on Facebook, all of his stories and all of his posts have a very consistent style and consistent branding. But I think it also does tie to then what your unique value proposition is. So I just wanted to throw that out there too, Bill, because I think that's an important piece of, if you understand your own unique value proposition, it does tie then into the branding of the imagery and what you're putting out there.
Yeah, great points. I support everything there 100%. So Francis, in the branding that you've done over the years, I mean, I guess to some of the agents here who haven't really gone deep in that, and how important is that in your business to send that steady message and, you know, stay present in a measured way, not just firing all over? Well, hold on. I think you're muted.
It's probably better that way.
I don't believe it.
I'm not sure if you want to hear what I have to say. So I think the reality and what my head thinks is reality are two very different things, right? And if you really ask me what I think my brand is, I'm going to say two things: my name and the color red. So, like, interestingly enough, I've always had red. I've always made a joke, you know, I was just waiting to come to KW, right? I've always had red. I used to use red because I wanted to be different than everyone at the company I was at, and everybody was using a different color. Now I'm here, and now KW is big in the world of real estate. Red kind of can get lost sometimes with other agents. So now I've kind of gone more into the red with the pink being the rosado, which is pink in Spanish. The roses being, because the rose, a lot of people call me Rose. It's like funny. People will forget my name and call me Rose because they remember the rose or the rosado. So that's kind of like the direction I've gone in now. But it's changed. I mean, through the years, I used to have all stuff that had to do with a stage, and it was more like show business because that was my background, right? So anything that you saw, red curtains and a stage, and that was kind of, again, with red. But at the end of the day, I really feel that my brand is my name. Now, if I would have known what I know now 17 years ago, I would have made the team name a different name. It would have not been Francis Rosado, right? That way later on, if I decide I want to be at the beach all day, someone else could run my team. But like when I've thought about that and even thought about changing it, I've realized that that would be at this point insane because it's the name. I'll go someplace and I guess I don't look like my picture, but if I say my name, they'll be like, oh, I know who you are. Oh, I get your stuff in the mail, or you know. So that's my brand. I would say my name.
Do you have a slogan?
No.
Okay.
I would have to actually look for my thing here somewhere, but it was, I know I have it out. It was a star performer, right? It had something to do with star performer because a million years ago, for those that have been in real estate a long time, I went to Hobbs Herder, 3-day seminar thing and had the personal brochures and all that stuff done. And that was basically to create your brand. Before the internet existed, we would mail these brochures out to people in my farm. And so that they would feel like they knew you before they met you, and they would know about you before they needed you. And I remember going on an appointment a million years ago with my son, Jose. He was really young, to a house. And we walk in and this woman's like, knew my whole life story. And it was from that brochure. And we walked out and my son was like, that's just freaking creepy. No, it's just marketing. It was branding. Like they read this and they thought like that they actually knew me, right? But it was from the brochure that they had gotten in the mail. So, but I don't really use a slogan right now.
Okay. Xavier.
Oh, wait. I take that back. Clifton's #1 real estate expert. And I've been saying that forever.
There you
It's
go.
created a lot of controversy, actually.
That's okay. It's branding. Xavier, do you have a slogan?
Client focused, results driven.
Client focused, results driven. So that goes back to Matt and his unique value proposition. So I'll tell you guys, especially early on in branding, picking the right words are very, very important with branding. So when we rebranded this agent's business from my team, it was it was focused more on fulfillment is what she wanted to get out there. She wants to help people find the home and the place to be that fulfills them. So her slogan has to do with finding the place that fills your soul, right? When I started, well, I don't want to say right away when I started, but for a while there, when I said before, the age gap was really different for me. I dove real deep into that. So for the longest time, if you find any of my old stuff, some of my admins have some of my cards from when I was like a kid. It would always say on it, reinventing real estate, one client at a time. And that was always my slogan for years. It was in my emails. It was everywhere. Reinventing real estate, one client at a time. And every once in a while, we bring that back, and we still use that now. But that was really important for me as my unique value proposition, because I was saying, like, I do things way different than all these realtors around me, right? And that's because of my age, and that's a big benefit. And that's why you need to have a conversation with me. Those words can be powerful by adding them in. There's an agent in Ringwood who does a ton of business. She's not a KW agent, but she is a master of branding and has done such a good job over a long period of time. And she's got a slogan. What's her slogan?
Only Orly.
Only Orly.
Only Orly. So when somebody just says their slogan, her slogan, they're reinforcing what she wants them to. There's also an agent that I know pretty well out of Ridgewood. What's that?
Gotta.
Yeah, Gada Abbasi. Ghadda is her name, and her slogan is "Gotta get gotta," right? So, and that's been extremely, extremely powerful for her in the past. Those catchy things, you just don't forget. So, for those of you who are thinking of taking your branding to the next level, do a little mix here of what Matt said. Matt's coach, right? Create a unique value proposition, put that into words. If you can make that catchy and credible and just drive that, that's your battle for mind share in the consumer's mind. Jane, who just jumped on about Gada, Jane, you've coached, mentored, and, helped people, various people, and, companies for that matter, right? With their branding or reinforced their branding over the years. What do you think? What do you think is important for agents to keep in mind with branding? And
Well, I can tell you before I get into anybody that I coached or anything, how many people believe that real estate agents are all about marketing? Because I can tell you in my world, how many people believe that my name is made up, that trust is part of my marketing. And it's astounding how many people are like, oh, that's a good marketing thing. I'm like, yeah, live with that for many, many years in my life. Like, that's my maiden name. That is what I deal with. So people expect it a lot more than you would think, because they're just assuming this about me. But I can tell you over the years, we've certainly done a lot of marketing and changed the branding in a lot of people. So I can tell you, Bill has definitely grown in his marketing from when very, very early on, where he was, I don't want to say slick because slick is the wrong word, but slick wasn't working for him. And he had to go back and he had to revisit it. We have had, when I was building an office up Route 23, one of the most important things that the agents did is they did go in and decide to create and brand themselves with particular imaging that they were comfortable with. And then they took that imaging and used it consistently for a year in their geographical farming or their sphere of influence farming, whichever it was. They went so far as to buy like 10,000 EDDM cards that were exactly the same card, that they didn't change, and mailed that to the same people every month. Because when you think about it, how often are they looking at the true message of the card? They're really not. I mean, it's like, okay, oh, look, gotta get gotta into the trash, right? So the idea behind doing that for the year was so that they would get used to seeing the branding and the marketing associated to the one person. And in doing that, they created the brand for themselves and created the recognition for themselves, so that then when they were using whatever that branding was on other pieces, it became that much more recognizable for them. And doing it in the bulk with the EDDM was a cheap way to do it. So I think once you've identified yourself, then you have to make sure that that consistency is there. Because if you are mailing everything out blue and then all of a sudden you're sending something red to somebody, or green or yellow or whatever color you choose, then you've lost it on that piece. And it's almost like a waste of that marketing.
And this is across all platforms, right? Like you want to
Correct.
have that consistent branding now, social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, your mailers, your email signature. The more you define that, the more that becomes a connection, right?
Yeah, I mean, when I talk about marketing, it's so rarely these days referring to anything in print. So rarely. It's mostly digital, what's the word? Like digital, I'm going to say media, but digital stuff that you're sending out. And that's so easy to, you're just popping the stuff on there, right? You just have to make sure it's consistent, and that it matches your ethic that you want to get out there and your message.
I have a question in reference to what you're saying. So rarely is it mailed out? Because a conversation I was having with someone today is where I'm feeling like I need to double up on my farm and mailing out, because I haven't been super consistent. So are you saying it just because, I guess?
I think we're going back to basics a little bit. I think that the mail is important for sure. The thing with the mail is you have to be extremely consistent with it. And what you're missing is, so like in my household, I'm not the only one who picks up the mail, right? So there's 5 adults in this household and they're all sorting through and getting rid of the junk. So you're not necessarily hitting the same person every time. I do believe you need to have consistent hard mail coming to the house for sure. But if you think about the collateral that's going out over social media, email, whatever, if you're placing a Facebook ad, I just think there are a lot more impressions that are going out that are not hard mail, that support it, that back it up. Even if you think about like your neighborhood news that you're sending out from Command, that's going out and that's making an impression, You need to make sure that your branding is proper in Command so that people recognize that it's you who's also sending the hard mail.
Well, and Jane, to your point, I mean, it basically comes back to what's in the Red Book, the MREA. It comes back to the 33 touch or the 36 touch campaign. I know that they've shifted with that, but ultimately those 33 touches over the course of the year, they're not all one thing. They're not all calls, they're not all emails, they're not all direct mail, social media. There's a lot of different components. So I think, Francis, a big part of it is just creating what your plan looks like for 2021, because to Jane's point, you can't give up on direct mailers, and maybe for you it'll work more than for others, maybe it won't, but it's got to be a mix of a lot of different things.
Right, and it's got to be recognizable. Those people who know and love you are going to recognize every single thing from you, right? So it's overkill for them, but those who are just starting to know and love you have to be reminded that it's you. And so that's where you need the consistency through the sticker on your apple pie and the mailing that's coming in and the logo on the email. Like it all has to tie together for them all.
Yeah, that's a great point. So you guys have heard me say this a million times. Studies show that the average consumer has place in their mind for 2 people from any given industry, right? So if I were to ask any of you guys for the name of a dentist, you should be able to give me the name of a dentist. I did that once and somebody couldn't give me the name. It was a little uncomfortable. But if you asked them for the name of a second dentist, statistically, it could take a minute or 2, but they'll be like, oh, yeah, that one. And then, of course, and there's always exceptions here, but the average says if you ask for the name of a third dentist, people would really start to struggle. So for people that are not connected to the real estate industry, they have space in their mind for two agents. Your job is to battle for one of those two spots. And if you're constantly or consistently changing your brand or just touching base with people in different ways that aren't consistent, it's just that much more challenging. They say people have to hear the same thing 9 times before they remember it forever. So imagine if someone's seeing all different things and not putting 2 and 2 together. We built a brand over a long period of time. I mean, there was a period of time where all of our riders were an obnoxious color, right? All over, like, so that was bringing people back to the brand. We've done a bunch of tests on different things over the years to make it so when somebody just as much as drove by a real estate sign for sale, they're like, oh, that's Bill and Ron's. Oh, that's Bill and Ron's.
Can I compound on top of that? The National Association of Realtors does their studies every year, buyers and sellers studies that they put out. And every year it says that you have to touch somebody every 30 to 45 days or they forget you. And it's not that they don't love you. You are not in the forefront of their mind. So when you're reaching out to them every 30 to 45 days to help them remember, you want to make sure you're giving them the same message, because then that message winds up having a greater imprint. If you're reaching out with I mean, obviously it's your name, it's who you are, but a totally different look every single time, then that message, the impact is nowhere near as strong in their mind, so that at the water cooler, when somebody's having triplets, your name has to drop right off of their mouth. And the only way that happens is consistent in front of them.
So that's a great point. You said that doesn't mean they don't love you, right? So often in our business, people get upset because someone that they thought they were friends with or were close with ends up listing or buying with someone else. Like, oh my God, how could they do that? They might trust you with their own children, right? But they would never trust that other person. But that other realtor did a better job of that mind share for 1 or 2, making the connection, not with the person, but with the realtor. So they might say, okay, when I'm thinking of a realtor, I'm thinking of those 2. When I'm thinking of someone I care about and love beyond belief, and I would let them, I would trust them with my own kids, that might be you. There can be an area where those 2 don't cross over. So it is important, even with people to constantly reinforce that message. And when you combine those 2, someone who's passionate about you, the person, and someone who's passionate about your brand as the realtor, that's when magic happens and your phone doesn't stop ringing, right? Because it's kind of this mixture of both that can't be separated.
Let me jump on that one quick second, Bill, because the other side of that coin, you have to be very careful when you're talking to that person who loves you, that they don't think that you're too busy for them. So you have to make sure that you stay on top of them, and that you're not complaining about your business and you're so excited and you're consistently asking them for referrals. Because if they know you're super busy and how great it is and you're not asking for the business from them, they're going to assume you don't need it. So you need to be super careful. They'll say that to you. Like, why didn't you call me? Well, you're really busy and I didn't think you'd have time. And that's more heartbreaking even than, anything else. So please make sure you're doing that.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. They feel like they're burdening you when in your mind, you couldn't imagine them going somewhere else. So I want to show you guys quick. I'll tell you a little of the background on this a little bit more. So I figured this would help. I was looking for this logo. So I sat with Donna Nelson on my team a little earlier this year, and we were talking through rebranding her business to connect with people who she just really, again, wanted to connect with. She felt like her role, and especially the buying process, is much more focused on again, that fulfillment factor, right? And helping people really find the place that's right for them. Donna has done several meditation classes for our office, and is really, really focused on giving back and just kind of a peaceful mindset. She's really big when it comes to mindset and focus and things like that. So we tried to take all that together, and the first thing we did was write up who she needed to connect with, right? We were writing that down. She wrote essentially a mission statement, and then how are we going to create a logo that matched her mission statement? So we ended up with, I'm not going to read her mission statement to you direct, but I will show you her final logo that is now all over her social media. I just pulled up the email from her to see it, and it's her picture on her email, which is phenomenal. And this is what there was about 4 or 5 renditions here. My brother-in-law, who's a graphic designer, really helped work through the layout, but she picked a couple that she liked. So it's the lotus plant, right? Peaceful, right? Mindfulness. This is really going to connect with people who, you know, do yoga or into meditation. They're used to seeing these symbols. This is comforting to them. And then you have the house in the middle, right? That's the center point. And then you have her slogan at the bottom, which is selling with soul. So this getting out there and branded everywhere in her email signature. So anybody who reads that sees it, you're going to make a connection with people that you intend to when your logo tells a story and when it is an extension of yourself. So Matt, like, would you feel like your MAPS coach would take a look at this branding and say, this is a good extension of Donna and who she is as far as her unique value proposition to her clients?
Yeah, 100%. And when you opened it up, I thought that is very Donna. Like just looking at this image, like because she does meditation, it's very peaceful. Selling the soul, I think that's great. Yeah, absolutely.
So that's a cool example. And guys, another example to take from this is it's never too late to reinvent yourself. You know, Donna's been in this business. She'll probably kill me if I mess this up, but I think it's over 20 years, right? She's been doing this a long time. And here she is completely redoing her logo and everything to just readjust, reconnect, which is something, again, that Ron and I have done numerous times as our business has evolved, as the business environment in general has evolved, and as we as people have evolved too. So don't hesitate to revisit it. But when you switch your branding, transition it. Don't completely switch it to all new colors, look, and messages, because you create a break. You know, we changed our color. We used to be all blue and silver years ago. And it was really sharp, really catchy. And then everybody else in our office was doing the same colors and the same look. So we were like, maybe we start to get away from that, right? So we kind of had to wean it over to different colors, different schemes. And when we switched from blue to red, we kept everything else the exact same, all the silver and everything, and then just went to red on the background. So we always keep a tie-in so the brand evolves instead of stops and starts again as something totally different.
Hey, Bill, how do you handle the fact that, you know, our colors for Keller Williams are certain colors? Do we need to stick to those colors?
Personally, no, I don't, right? I mean, I'm a fan of branding. I think there's something to be said about riding the coattails of branding that's already been out there for a long time, right? So, you know, Keller Williams brand is pretty recognizable. A couple of years ago in the Wayne area, it wasn't. And now it's like, you know, I had people in 6 months of us opening, oh my God, I see your signs everywhere. So for agents to connect with that color logo, it can bring automatic credibility, especially when they drive around the state and see those signs and everything everywhere. But I do think, and I'm a very big proponent of the individual agents also having their own branding within that, right? And that could be a completely different color. I'm not an artist, but just from someone who's bothered by things that don't look nice, I would say try to pick a color that's somewhat aligned or can match red, right? Or I've talked to agents before, like, even from a sign perspective, so this is how much we believe in branding. We voted when we opened our offices that we keep our signs very close to looking the same for the whole office. And it worked in no time. We have a ton of brand recognition in our area. Some other KWs, there's all different agents with different signs. And that's one of the biggest complaints in those areas is people don't know there's agent signs that actually look like other companies. So you're actually reinforcing, if you had a yellow sign because you wanted to stand out in a town, you would subconsciously be reinforcing the Weicker brand without even knowing it. That's how good they did in branding that yellow color. So what I've mentioned to some people, and here's what I would do. I mean, we have our team signs and logos if you want to stick with our colors, but even if an agent on a yard sign wanted to go with the smallest version of the office sign and then get a panel underneath it, which is totally branded with them and their colors, and that's out there, you're actually co-branding both. You're branding the company and riding off of that branding, which is great. And then you have, Xavier's branding colors and stuff match ours considerably, right? They look really sharp together. So to have even two panels on a sign that have both of those met, I think is powerful in separating, agent and growing your own brand within that too. And you can do the same thing as far as, print marketing goes, as far as any online marketing goes. One thing we used to do a lot, and we kind of got away from this the last couple years. We should go back to it, to be perfectly honest, because it was really beneficial for us for a while. Every January, we would have a banner made up for the top of a page. It would have my picture, Ron's picture, all of our stuff, and the color scheme that we were looking for. And everything we did that year from marketing would just go under that, right? So we could do just sold, you name it. It's always that same banner at the top. So that consistency and message was there. And we did that when we were with our previous company. We did that when we were with Keller Williams. And we were able to incorporate both our personal brand and the company brand in that. So it was really powerful in allowing us to lean on the corporate brand to build our business, but also to make sure that we had our own, branding connection there too. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, for the most part.
Okay.
I guess it's going to be like individual marketing materials. Like, how do I do that? I mean, I know because I have to have the KW Prosperity on there. I guess when I get to a point where I have ideas of what to do, then I can ask more specifically.
Well, listen, I would honestly encourage you to create a branded piece that's going to go on, or that everything will go on, put it that way. So you could do that now, right? You could just think through, what you want it to look like, talk to a graphic designer. Maybe you want to call our marketing affiliate there with Foundation Title and ask them to do that. You want to just put together, a banner, right? That has your name, your information, our logo, follows all those rules. Then you have that. And no matter what you do, you just slap that on there. It's real easy. So many agents try, every time they go to put something out, they try to here's how we're going to lay this thing out. Here's where I'm going to put myself. Here's where I'm going to put my name. Is this big enough? Do I have this disclosure on? Just systematize it, put it together, get your brand set for the year, and then say anything I do this year is going to fit in here. It's going to fit in this look. And you might do a postcard layout of that. You might do an 8.5 by 11 layout of that, where the middle part, you just plug whatever in, and the top and the bottom set with all your disclosures. And then you might do an internet version of that, where you have your branding on one side, and then next to it, you're going to put whatever your message is. And then just, if that's all done in first week of January, all year, it's real easy, mix and match. You can send all them to your marketing company. You can send, and don't say you don't have a marketing company, because we do now through the title company. And then they have that sitting there, and anything you want to do, you could just, hey, do me a favor, plug this picture and this message in, and let's see how it lays out. Boom, your marketing piece is done. Any, we have about 5 minutes left, guys. We're going to run to 3:45 here today. Anybody else have any questions as far as branding goes?
Bill, I guess one question I would have for you, and I know you've been doing this for a while, would be, what's one of the common mistakes that you see people do when they're branding themselves? Like, because you have a good eye for that type of stuff. What would you say are some of the common mistakes or the common things that you see that are successes most often?
So that's evolved. I think one of the biggest mistakes that I see now is too much just sold, under contract, right? Like just constant blitz of that. Almost boasting about production as opposed to tying it back to your value proposition, right? So if you'll notice, and we do this, we do a lot of just listed. That's different. We're in the business of marketing properties. But it can come across as just kind of shameless boasting if every 2 seconds it's just sold on the greatest, right? If in there all we did was to say, just sold, excited to have gotten top dollar for another client, looking forward to the opportunity to help you and your family, navigate in the safest possible way through these times. You've now at least switched the, hey, I'm branding just sold. So people know I'm selling, but I'm also bringing it back to the value that I'm giving out there. I think a lot of agents have taken that turn to where it's just like, if I can prove to a lot of people that I've sold 1 million houses, they're just going to call me to buy. And I know that's not the case, because I know a lot of consumers who call me see that and are calling me to talk to me about that, right? With another agent. So I'm like, okay, that's clearly not working. Well, I mean, I'm sure it is to a certain extent, but I think the internet has allowed us to dilute the brand a little bit and just focus on message. And that's a constant changing message. So some people are like just firing in a million directions. Without Sean, like you said, Sean Annan's really good. Even the stuff that he does online, it's got his signature on it. Like, he brands beautifully.
Everything.
Yeah. Like, he is light years ahead of me on that. The Woobs doing a really good job of that too. So that kind of stuff, that brand consistency, and it's always bringing it back to message and, a mix of different content. It's not always the same thing, I think is really important. And, it's something that I focused on. That was like the main point of our growing business for years. And then when you get real busy, it's easy to take your eye off that ball, right? And, I got a lot of work to do on our branding when it comes to taking our team to the next level. And I know, and I realize that, and I have plans for that. So it's always an evolution. It's always changing. The stuff that I was killing it with in 2009 and 10 is just not going to connect there too. And then the last piece I'm going to say before I sign off is, I feel like a lot of people are just focusing it online, and they're not doing the mailing. And there's times where I'm guilty of this too. But when I switched my office to Franklin Lakes, and I did this because I lost a listing in Ridgewood, I wanted for $2 million. I met with this Wall Street guy, like 10 times. And I was really trying to break into the high-end market. And he was like, Bill, we absolutely love you. We would list with you, but there's no way we can list with an agent whose office is in Kinnelon. It was a little different back then. I switched the office. There was a lot of conversation around that. Jane, I don't know if you remember that, but I ended up moving my office to Franklin Lakes. And I put a plan together to brand myself in that Franklin Lakes market, because I didn't know a human being there. So we created a logo, a layout, and a brand that everything I did was in alignment with. My slogan changed from reinventing real estate, or one client at a time, to luxury redefined, right? So all of my luxury marketing had that on it. And it was a mix of a target farm physically that I was hitting all the time with mail. So there was a physical piece there. We were doing some stuff digitally back then, not a lot, but I did create a page at the time called North Jersey Luxury, which I was branding back to that significantly. We did a lot of postcard work. I joined some groups there. I was doing jujitsu out of Franklin Lakes and making a lot of connections that way. And I used to work from the Starbucks in the middle of urban farms and just meet people as they come in. And I knew after a couple months it was working. People come in, they're like, oh, you're the real estate guy, right? Mind you, this is only a few months that passed. And that turned into some really cool opportunities over the next couple of years, and selling some big houses there. That's not really my focus anymore, but it was nice to know and see that you can very quickly, through branding alone, create a message and have even the people in price ranges that are bombarded with branding all the time really connect with it. And the newspaper actually was another one there, but newspaper was looked at a little bit more. Suburban News was a really cheap one. It had about a shelf life. So I was on that every house in Wyckoff and Franklin Lakes. I was sitting on that coffee table for a couple years, and it worked, but it was all consistent. It was all the same, and it was hitting them from different angles. So they didn't just see me as the retargeting person online. They were like, wow, you're here. Wow, you're there. Wow, and now I'm seeing your faces on signs around town. And it kind of becomes all encompassing there.
Bill, I don't know if you remember you telling me at Breakers one time that your area code on your phone was also a big deal for you because you had a different area code than, I guess, like the Bergen County or whatever you were trying to sell.
Yep. And I changed my phone number. So actually, I didn't change my phone number. I got a second line with the 201 exchange that I then had forwarded to my 973 because I was getting better results with 201 because that's branded Bergen County. There's people walking around Bergen County with like 201 tattoos. Like if your area code is not, Jane, you know a little bit about this. If you're not 201 like that, you're in a different planet. So yeah, I mean, we did that and we changed all of our signs. If you look at our signs right now, our office number on those signs to this day is 201. And we still do a good amount of business in Bergen County. And I feel like that's a good correlation, right? People see that, they automatically think local. And that's because of branding that, I don't know, Lucent did, 100 years ago. So pretty cool. I do have to sign off. Matt, I'm going to let you guys close out here, but thank you guys so much. And if anyone has any questions on branding, definitely hit me up.
Thanks, Bill. And I've got to run myself. But I think this was really good. I think the takeaway is just consistency, messaging, and just earning mind share, out there, just earning the mind share of your community and of your database. So thanks for being on. We're going to try to keep these to a nice tight 45 minutes going forward. So we'll see you guys next week. I think next week's topic is dominate your database through gratitude. So that'll be a good time of year for that. So thank you guys, and I will see you next week.
Thanks, bye.
Bye guys.